If you've been feeling it, that creeping sense that something's gone deeply wrong, that the promises we grew up believing about hard work, families, the American dream, were just that, promises. If you've looked around and thought, why does it feel like the whole thing is rigged? You're not crazy, and you're not alone. Because the truth is, we didn't just wake up in a broken world. We were led there, step by step, by people who knew exactly what they were doing. This moment we're living through, the chaos, the division, the corruption, the despair, didn't start with Trump. It didn't start with Biden either. And it's not just about left or right. It's about a system built over decades, designed to serve the few, while keeping the rest of us fighting over the scraps. So let's talk about how we got here. And more importantly, how we get out. Fair warning, some of this might challenge what you've been taught, what you've been led to believe. And honestly, that's the point. In 1981, the United States took a sharp turn. Ronald Reagan didn't just bring in a new administration. He brought in a new ideology. He stood at the podium and told us that government wasn't the solution. It was the problem. That if we just got it out of the way, cut taxes for the rich, let corporations regulate themselves, and turn public services into private profit centers, then wealth would trickle down to everyone else. We were told that helping the wealthy should somehow lift the poor, that deregulating industries would lead to innovation and growth, that privatizing healthcare, education, even prisons, would make them more efficient. But that wasn't economics. It was marketing. It was a con dressed up as freedom. And it worked because it sounded good. And it made a lot of very rich people a lot richer. What they didn't tell you, what they never tell you, is that the system was never meant to lift everyone. It was designed to funnel wealth upward, from the workers to the shareholders, from public to private, from the many to the few. And over the decades, it did exactly that. CEO pay skyrocketed, unions were gutted, jobs were outsourced, and communities, especially rural and working class ones, were hollowed out. Meanwhile, we were told to blame ourselves, that if we weren't thriving, it's because we didn't try hard enough, didn't hustle, didn't innovate. They sold us on personal responsibility while they rewrote the rules. And the most dangerous part? It didn't stop with Reagan. Democrats bought into it too. Clinton deregulated Wall Street. Obama bailed out the banks, but not the homeowners. This wasn't a red versus blue problem. It was systemic. We've been boiling in that pot ever since. The water got warmer slowly until now we're scalded, exhausted, and just starting to realize what's been happening all along. Selling you the lie was never about policy. It was about the story. Because when you rig an economy to serve the rich, you need someone else to blame when people start hurting. So they gave us a villain. Not the CEOs shipping jobs overseas. Not the billionaires hoarding wealth like some dragon. But the poor, immigrants, Black Americans, single moms, queer kids. Anyone who didn't fit the mold of their real America. And to push that narrative, they built a machine. In the late 80s and early 90s, it was talk radio. Rush Limbaugh and his imitators, pumping out grievance hour after hour. Then came Fox News, built from the ground up to fuse entertainment with ideology. A 24/7 outrage loop that looked like news, but acted like a weapon. And all of it reinforced by evangelical churches who preached prosperity for their faithful and punishment for the other. Jesus was repackaged as a gun-toting capitalist, and the Sermon on the Mount was replaced by tax cuts for the wealthy. They didn't just report the news. They created a belief system, a worldview that's black and white, us versus them, good versus evil. One where doubt is disloyalty, and asking questions makes you the enemy. Over time, that belief system became something deeper, emotional, even spiritual. It wasn't just about voting Republican. It was about belonging to a tribe. It was about identity. And once the political identity fuses with personal identity, changing minds isn't just hard. It's like trying to rewrite someone's sense of self. That's where we are now. An entire segment of this country didn't just vote a certain way. They believe it, down to the marrow. They believe immigrants are invading. They believe liberals are corrupting their kids. They believe scientists, journalists, even teachers are all part of the plot. And when belief replaces evidence, when propaganda replaces reality, you don't just get disagreement, you get delusion. And that's by design. Because if you can convince people to reject reality itself, you can convince them of anything, even that their own suffering is someone else's fault. The 2008 financial collapse should have been a turning point, a national reckoning, a chance to ask hard questions about a system that let Wall Street gamble with people's lives. But instead of change, we got bailouts for billionaires and evictions for everyone else. They told us that the economy had recovered. But who were they talking about? Because for most Americans, that crash never really ended. You got foreclosed, downsized, blamed. Your savings vanished, your retirement became a fantasy, and your job, even if it came back, probably didn't come with benefits. Wages stagnated, healthcare costs soared, college debt ballooned. Entire regions, like right here in West Texas, were left to rot after the oil boom went bust. But even as people suffered, the people who caused the crash got richer. So where did all that anger go? Well, instead of looking up at the bankers, the hedge fund managers, the politicians who deregulated it all, they told you to look sideways at the immigrants, the woke, the liberals, the deep state, at anyone but the actual architects of your pain. Don't look up, they said. Punch sideways. Then came COVID, a global pandemic that could have been a unifying moment, a time to take care of each other, to invest in public health, and to rethink what essential really means. But under Trump, it turned into something else entirely. Science was mocked, masks were politicized, lives were lost by the hundreds of thousands needlessly. And once again, the people at the top made out just fine. Billionaires added trillions to their wealth, while nurses wore garbage bags. While teachers scrambled on Zoom, while millions stood in food lines for the first time in their lives. And just like in 2008, instead of addressing the system, they gave us more scapegoats. Blame China, blame Fauci, blame your neighbor for getting vaccinated. The formula hadn't changed. Break the system, blame the victims, profit from the chaos. But here's the thing. People know something's wrong. They feel it every time they pay rent, or go to the doctor, or try to imagine a future for their kids. What they don't always know is who's really responsible. Because the people in charge have gotten very good at hiding that part. By the time Trump came around, the stage was already set. Decades of deregulation, a media ecosystem built on fear, and a population battered by economic betrayal. It was all perfectly primed for someone to step in and promise to blow it all up. Trump didn't invent this movement. He revealed it. He peeled back the curtain on what had been hiding in plain sight. The distrust of democracy, the contempt for expertise, the belief that facts are negotiable and power is truth, and the yearning for a strong man to punish the outsiders. People like to say he broke the system, but the truth is, he simply stopped pretending it was ever fair. And now, in his current term, we're seeing the next phase of that project play out in real time. This isn't about policy anymore. This isn't about small government or low taxes or even freedom. It's about control of the courts, of the press, of education, of your body, of the narrative. We're watching basic institutions, once flawed, yes, but functional, get hollowed out and weaponized from the inside. Loyalty now matters more than competence, conspiracy more than evidence, spectacle more than service. And if you're thinking it can't happen here, I've got news for you. It already is. This isn't the GOP of Reagan. This isn't even the party of Bush. It's a personality cult wrapped in a legal coup, armed with voter suppression, gerrymandering, and a judiciary it helps stack. It has no interest in governing, just dominating. And if democracy gets in the way, then democracy has to go. Because here's the thing. Chaos is not the cost of their movement. It's the product, the goal. When everything feels broken, when the truth becomes objective, when people are too exhausted to care, that's when authoritarianism thrives. And that's where we are right now. But it doesn't have to be where we stay. So, what do? First, we stop pretending it'll fix itself. It won't. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as it was designed to protect capital, to funnel wealth upward, to keep people divided, distracted, and afraid. We name it, out loud, for what it is. A 40-year con that hollowed out the middle class, crippled labor, privatized the public good, and replaced real opportunity with bootstraps and blame. And when the bill came due, they didn't pay it. You did, with your wages, your health care, your housing, your time, your trust. Second, we build something new. Not nostalgia, not bipartisanship, not compromise with people trying to gut democracy. We build a 21st century economy that works for actual human beings, not corporations, not hedge funds, not oil monopolies writing climate change policy in the middle of a heat wave. We invest in the stuff that lasts: public infrastructure, public schools, clean energy, universal health care, strong unions, high-speed internet in every rural town, dignity. We cap obscene wealth, not out of spite, but out of necessity, because no democracy can survive when a handful of billionaires have more political power than millions of voters. And yes, we bring those jobs back. Not coal jobs, not fantasy jobs, real ones. Green jobs, tech jobs, care jobs, rebuilding jobs. Jobs that don't just keep the lights on, but help the next generation dream bigger. In places like West Texas and Flint and Jackson, and all the places they wrote off as left behind. Because people haven't lost hope in America. They've lost hope in the people running it. So here's the truth. We don't need to restore faith in democracy. We need to make it worth believing in again. But it starts with telling the truth, even when it's hard, even when it's messy, even when it means admitting that the system we were taught to worship was never built to serve everyone. This is our moment to reject the con, to rewrite the rules, to build something bold and honest and real. Because if we don't, someone else will build something darker in its place. And they already are. This moment didn't happen overnight. It wasn't an accident. It was the result of decades of deliberate choices by people in power who gambled with our future and told us it was freedom. They dismantled what worked, sold off what we built together. And when the consequences came crashing down, they told us to blame each other. And we did. But if we stay quiet now, if we let exhaustion become apathy and fear become silence, this really could be the end of the road. Not just for progress, but for truth, for democracy, for the idea that this country belongs to everyone, not just the people who can buy it. You've got a choice. We all do. We can retreat into comfort, tune it out, tell ourselves someone else will fix it. Or we can join the people who are done waiting. The workers organizing against impossible odds, teachers rewriting the rules of what a classroom can be, the climate scientists refusing to look away, parents showing up again and again because their kids deserve better, the Gen Z activists who grew up in the crisis and still choose hope. This isn't about left or right anymore. It's about up and down, people versus profit, democracy versus decay, truth versus spectacle. And yeah, the odds are long. They always are when you're trying to change something real. But history isn't made by cynics. It's made by people who refuse to give up, even when it's hard. Especially then. So, if you're tired of watching the worst people win, if you've ever wondered whether your voice matters, if you've ever felt like you're shouting into a void, you're not alone. There are more of us than there are of them. We just have to act like it, speak like it, build like it, vote like it, live like it. This is the fight of our lives, not for nostalgia, not for some broken vision of the past, but for the future we can actually believe in. Let's get to work.